Hello, YouTubers and NFL fans everywhere. This is Matt, the NFL Fanatic, giving you my 2015-2016 NFL Divisional Round Playoff Weekend predictions. Well, we are in the playoffs. Yes, we are. We are in the playoffs. And what a crazy wild card weekend that we had this past weekend. So many interesting stories, so many dominating performances, combined with heartbreakers. You know, just to go through each one quickly, last week I did go 4-0, first perfect week of the year. I know there was only 4 games, but hey, going 4-0 is going 4-0. I'll take that. And now overall for the year, I'm 163-97, which improves my winning percentage to .627. So 62.7%, getting back up to that 64%. I'm happy with that. But what a crazy weekend. The Kansas City-Houston game. Congratulations, Kansas City Chiefs fans. Your streak is over at 23 years. With a 30-0 shutout of the Houston Texans. By the way, that was the first time that the Houston Texans in franchise history had ever been shut out. And I knew from the beginning of that game, when Niall Davis became returned the first kickoff touchdown, the first time that's happened in NFL playoff history, to start the game, I knew this game was going to look bad. And here's the thing. The Houston Texans defense for a majority of the game showed up. Because Brian, the Hoyer destroyer of the Texans' hearts, threw 4 interceptions and had a fumble. So he had 5 turnovers in the game. He threw the most interceptions in the wild card round since I believe Scott Mitchell did back in the 95 playoffs against the Philadelphia Eagles. And it was just one of the saddest days, I believe, in Houston Texans franchise history. And I believe that's the worst game they have ever played. Because to just lose the way they did, and all of it goes on Brian Hoyer. And to me, I think Brian Hoyer, he is going to be looking for a job next year because I do not see him being back with the Houston Texans because Texan fans will not and should not forgive him for such an horrific performance. But for Kansas City, great team overall victory. Grind out defense. Losing Jeremy Maclin in the game was huge. Everybody thought it was a torn ACL, but MRI results showed that it was a sprained knee. So that is a huge relief in terms of just the severity of the injury. And he could play against New England this Saturday, which would be huge. But again, we're going to have to see how it goes. But that is a sign of relief for Chief fans. And kudos to Andy Reid. 11 straight wins. First playoff win in 23 years. Andy Reid has done everything that the Chiefs organization has wanted him to. And to see this team, like I said before last week, I'll say it again. If it wasn't for Ron Rivera going 15-1 this year, I would put Andy Reid hands down as my coach of the year. To go from 1-5 to 12-5 and get the first win in Chiefs playoff history in 23 years and their first divisional round appearance in that span is a tremendous accomplishment. All without, by the way, Jamal Charles. So kudos to the Chiefs. Sorry for the Texans, but hey, at least you improve the team. And if you get a good quarterback and you get another decent wide receiver, when you get Arian Foster back next year, this team should be a wild card threat, to say the very least, and they can get back in the playoffs next year. Pittsburgh at Cincinnati. Wow. That was an amazing turn of events. It was a defensive game throughout the first about 3 quarters. And then when Big Ben threw that great touchdown to Martavius Bryant, definitely the catch of the playoffs so far. Oh, no, maybe Doug Baldwin when he had that big catch, and I'll get that in a second. And then when A.J. McCarron responded, and then Burfict picked off the ball, and I thought, the Bengals' curse would be over. I thought they were finally going to get a playoff win. But then Vontaze Burfict, a man that has had a history of, taking dirty shots, being too aggressive, and just not caring, cost this team the game. And I know a lot of Bengals fans are saying, oh, that was a clean hit. Well, again, people are going, well, Giovanni Bernard earlier in the game got knocked out by Ryan Shazier with a concussion. I will say this. I believe Shazier should have been flagged because I thought that was a helmet-to-helmet hit, and he should have been flagged for that. But at the same time, I also believe Vontaze Burfict deserved to be flagged. Because when you watch Antonio Brown, and I love Adam Pac-Man Jones, who, by the way, is the other culprit of the other 15-yard penalty that moved a 50-yard field goal to a chip shot 35-yard field goal. Even though for kickers today, I don't think any yardage is any chip shot anymore. Just ask Blair Walsh. But when you look at that incident, Adam Jones had the balls to say, "Oh, I thought Antonio Brown was flopping." And that took a lot of nerve because Vontaze Burfict's a big man, and the way he hit him, he could have taken his football career away with just how devastating that hit was. So for Adam Jones to say that's pretty stupid because I think most people, saw that and he legitimately got knocked out by Burfict. And I guess if you want to say that, he should win a Golden Globe for flopping, well, he should win an Academy Award, a Tony Award. He should win every award because that was so convincing then that I think everybody believes it. So, but to just talk about this Bengals game a little more, I need to say something about Marvin Lewis. It is time for Bengals fans to realize Marvin Lewis has to be fired. Okay, this game came down to penalties and discipline. And that falls on the head coach. To see those players react, and I'll say this, for all the Bengals fans out, it's like, well, Joey Porter was out there. Joey Porter, he might have checked on Antonio Brown, but it was wrong for him to be on the field to be jawing with the other Bengals. Okay, that's all his fault, and he's going to get a fine, which he deserves. But to just hear some of the Bengals fans justifying Marvin Lewis and saying, this franchise before, it was a complete crap, it was a complete piece of crap, we were terrible, and Marvin Lewis has elevated us to a point of, consistency. But you've earned nothing in that consistency. You have become, and I'm going to say this in my opinion, and Bengals fans that watch this video, you can come at me and attack me all you want. You have become the most irrelevant team in the regular season in the NFL today. And let me explain that. Outside of Cincinnati, no Bengals fans, or nobody cares what Bengals fans have to say in the regular season. You can brag about winning games. By the way, you tied a franchise record in regular season wins. Congratulations. But nobody cares outside of Cincinnati. Nobody cares about Andy Dalton's regular season stat. Nobody cares about how many sacks the Bengals defensive line has. Nobody cares about all the great defensive numbers and all the great regular season victories this team has. Nobody cares anymore. Everybody outside of Cincinnati is going to tell every Bengal fan one thing. We will care about you in January. That's it. We will care about the Bengals in January. We don't care about them through the draft or the combine, the preseason, training camp, or the entire regular season. You can go 16-0 and people are not going to care because everybody's going to come back at the Bengals fans and say, what are you going to do in the postseason? And to me, as much as that may sound harsh, it is the absolute truth in my opinion. Because you just can't keep losing year after year after year after year after year and try to defend Marvin Lewis staying. Because if he's had that much tenure with this team, he should be able to get one playoff win. So, again, Bengals fans, you may sound being too critical, but I'm just being honest. That's how I feel. Is that you guys have become the most irrelevant playoff team in the game. And what I mean by that is nobody cares what the Bengals do the entire regular season. And as long as you have Marvin Lewis and Andy Dalton there, and you keep losing, you're going to have more and more people stop caring about the Bengals' regular season success. So, I do believe that Hugh Jackson should be promoted and give Hugh an opportunity because Marvin's had 14 years. And for him not getting a playoff win, that's just unbelievable that the Bengals fans have been patient enough. It's time to move on. So that's my thoughts on that. So, and Bengals fans, like I said, if you want to come after me, go ahead. I'm just voicing my opinion. Okay. So, and then Seattle and Minnesota. Blair Walsh, wow. He got Billy Cundiff off the hook as a Raven fan. A 27-yard field goal went wide left. After he had made a 22-yarder, a 43-yarder, and a 47-yarder. Right down the middle. You know, to me, I almost felt like I was watching Gary Anderson back in '98. Except that's worse because Gary had to kick an extra 11 yards back. You know, this is like an extra point. And, you know, in some ways, it's going to be really devastating for Vikings fans and for Seattle fans. You know, they should be thanking the man upstairs because he gave him a gift of, you know, getting out of Minnesota with a victory. Cam Chancellor, I thought, made a BS comment saying, "Oh, well, I knew that kick was going to go wide left." Baloney. He knew that, by all accounts, that should have gone in. And by the way, people are making the laces out comment, which is, you know, hilarious. But I do feel bad for Blair because that's going to haunt him, just like Billy Cundiff's kick, just like Scott Norwood's kick, for the rest of his life. The Vikings fans are never going to forgive him for that moment. But again, the Vikings fans, though, should be, in all seriousness, in a very positive momentum looking for the future. For the fact that just 4 weeks ago, you got blown out by this team on that same field by 31 points, and you cut the deficit of the game by 30, that's incredible. Mike Zimmer has a team that is going to win a playoff game next year. If they don't, he could get fired because that just shouldn't happen. Bridgewater is going to get better. AP will be AP. If you get another wide receiver, that's going to just help the matters. You have a very stout and impressive defense full of veterans and young guys. And for Minnesota to go 11-5, win the NFC North, and look that good, there's going to be bright and bigger things heading for the Minnesota Vikings. And for Seattle, kudos to them as well. They get to go on to their fourth straight divisional round, and the Seattle dynasty effect, or the Seattle dominance, is still alive. And now, with that Minnesota game behind them, they can move on to Carolina. And finally, Green Bay and Washington, you know, it was a competitive game for the most part. Deshaun Jackson made a pretty big gaffe with the touchdown dragging the feet. But at the same time, it was just at a point where I think after the Redskins could not come back with another score, and the Packers scored right after that, the Packers had this game firmly in hand. The Packers scored 35 points, the most points they had scored on offense since week 3 of this year. So, you know, the offense looked great, the running game was solid, and this Packer team looked like the Packer team that we had seen earlier in the year. Again, Kirk Cousins, he did not have a great game, and I think a playoff thing with him can be concerning, and I do believe, though, still, he deserves a $100 million contract because at least Kirk Cousins has a division title and a playoff appearance. Something that Ryan Tannehill does not have, but he has $96 million. So if Ryan Tannehill can get that money, Kirk Cousins can deserve a little bit more money than that. So those are my thoughts on the games of the wildcard weekend. And here are my picks for the divisional round. All right, Saturday, when the 5-seeded Kansas City Chiefs go to the 2-seeded New England Patriots, I'm going to take the New England Patriots. And then in the Saturday night game, when the 6-seeded Green Bay Packers, when the 5-seeded Green Bay Packers go to the 2-seeded Arizona Cardinals, I'm going to take the Arizona Cardinals. And then on Sunday, when the 6-seeded Seattle Seahawks go to the 1-seeded Carolina Panthers, I'm going to take the Seattle Seahawks. And then on Sunday night, when the 6-seeded Pittsburgh Steelers go to the 1-seeded Denver Broncos, I'm going to take the Denver Broncos. All right, time for my thoughts in each game. Kansas City at New England. Kansas City has rolled off 11 straight victories, longest active winning streak in the NFL, and they have no more monkey on their back because they won a playoff game for the first time in 23 years, like I said earlier. And actually, if you think about it, they're playing a New England team maybe at a perfect time. Tom Brady, going back to the regular season, lost back-to-back games for the first time in his career to end the year. And also, Bill Belichick went 2-4 in the final 6 games of his season, and that is the lowest point for him in any 6-game stretch to end the season in his tenure as the New England Patriots head coach. Again, Kansas City has gone 6 straight games without allowing a 100-yard rusher, and New England hasn't had a 100-yard rusher since week 9 of this year when LeGarrette Blount had 129 yards. the home team has won each of the last 2 games over the last 4. The last time these two teams played, in Kansas City beat them 41-14, and that was the catalyst for the Patriots' run because everybody thought they were down and out, and this was all over for the Patriots. And Bill Belichick famously just kept saying, "We're on to Cincinnati." And then after that, they went on to win the Super Bowl. So I look at that and say, so definitely New England has an advantage. Also, New England at home, with them being at home, they're 11-3 at home under Bill Belichick and Tom Brady. The 3 losses they have are to only the Jets and the Ravens. Yeah, and we're the only team to have multiple wins in Foxborough in the playoffs against the Patriots under Belichick. So that's pretty awesome. That's a pretty cool distinction for us. And also, it's Tom Brady in the postseason. He is 21-8 in the postseason. And shout out to Andrew Warren for putting up this stat. This is an incredibly impressive stat for Tom Brady. Which is Tom Brady has more playoff wins than 23 other franchises. 23 other franchises have less playoff wins in their entire histories than Tom Brady does. At 21. Which is insane. So shout out to Andrew Warren for putting up for giving me that stat, and go ahead and check out his videos. He does a great job. So when you look at that, it's hard not to pick them. They should get Danny Amendola back. Edelman should be back. The offensive line could be as healthy as they can. And with Jeremy Maclin possibly not playing, I'm just not confident that at Kansas City, if they have Travis Kelce, you just can't beat the Patriots by just having Travis Kelce catch every ball, because Bill Belichick, what he does best is take away your best weapon. So if Maclin can't play, they're going to take away Kelce, and I don't expect Albert Wilson, Anthony Thomas, or I really can't name any, or Chris Conley, there we go. He was a guy that caught a great touchdown in the game. I just can't expect those guys to beat up that secondary with Alex Smith throwing them the ball. Again, if Maclin plays, it's a huge game, and I'm not going to be... Kansas City will give them a fight, because Kansas City has a type of team and a type of play that makes teams adjust to them, and they're going to get a good amount of pressure. Tom Brady's been sacked 39 times, or 38 times, tied 9th in the league, and he got hit 8 times, and he got sacked twice against the Dolphins back in Week 17. And this Chiefs pass rush has a lot of great talent on it that can do the same thing. But I'm going to take New England because Kansas City's offense is too conservative and too in front of itself. And just when you play Brian Hoyer and then you play Tom Brady, that's 2 completely different levels, and they're also rested. You also give Bill Belichick 2 weeks to prepare for this team. And I just don't see the Chiefs. And again, they're playing of house money because Chief fans already got what they wanted. They got a playoff win. So anything extra is just gravy at this point. So for them, which might be an advantage because they have nothing to really lose by the fan standards. But for New England, I just feel like they just have too much experience, too much talent, and too much rest that I believe that they should be able to beat the Kansas City Chiefs in a big playoff game and get to their 5th consecutive AFC Championship game, which is insane. So that's why I'm going to take the New England Patriots to beat the Kansas City Chiefs. Arizona over Green Bay. This game, I almost feel like it's just like Seattle, Minnesota, except in the other way. Arizona should win this game. But nobody be surprised if Green Bay puts up more than 8 points. They're going to put up more than 8 points. And I think this game, it'll be the offensive version of Seattle, Minnesota. I could see Arizona winning this game 34-30 or, 37-33. Because I could see the Packers, being motivated. They have all the motivation to prove to the Cardinals that they can't just toss them around like that. And Green Bay's lost their last 2 games in Arizona by a combined score of 99-48. The last time actually these 2 teams played in the playoffs was Aaron Rodgers' first playoff game. The one he lost 51-45 off a defensive touchdown. And which I thought was really impressive. impressive for him in that first game. And I'm not going to say it's going to go 51-45 because I think Arizona's defense is good enough to not give up 40. But I could see a 34-30 type of game with, Arizona just being able to barely shoot out Green Bay. In Arizona, they have the number 1 offense in total yards per game and number 2 in points per game. And when I just look at Arizona, they have much better talent on the defensive line and the secondary. They lost Devontae Adams to a huge knee injury, and that will be big going into the game if he can play. If he can't play, that's a huge advantage to Arizona. And there's just a part of me going, the last time, with the way the Cardinals play defense, it's essentially Seattle-esque in the fact that they blitz, I believe, the most in the league, and they let their corners just go on islands. Of course, you got Peterson on probably Cobb, and then Bethel or Johnson on the second part. Having Tyrann Mathieu there would have been huge, but of course he tore his ACL a few weeks ago, so I hope he gets better soon. And to me, when I just look at this game, again, I just kind of think it's going to be just like the 09 game, and I just believe Arizona with the number 1 offense can make one more play, and the Cardinals can make one, or the Cardinals make one more stop on the Packers to win this game. I'm excited for this game. I think Green Bay, they have the Minnesota motivation against Seattle. They got blown out. They don't want to get embarrassed again. And to me, I think the Packers, with that performance, they got their swagger back. Of course, Randall Cobb yelled into the Redskins camera, "You like that." And I think, again, so they'll be motivated to play the Cardinals. And for Carson Palmer, this is huge. This is his first playoff game he is trying to win. And only the second playoff game he is starting. Or his third, which is insane. In a 10-year career, he's only played in 2 playoff games. And again, I think for Carson, this would be a huge, stepping stone for him and this Cardinal team to try to get to their first NFC title game since 2008, which they won. So, again, this game is going to be great, but I'm going to take Arizona in a shootout here just because I just believe that Arizona's offense, with no Sam Shields, he's still going through concussion protocol. I don't know if he's going to pass. That Arizona offense is just a little bit more potent than the Packers offense. And I just believe that's going to be the key. So that's going to take Arizona to beat Green Bay. Seattle over Carolina. Man, talk about another old school type of game. And by the way, Seattle won the lowest scoring playoff game since Pete Carroll, ironically, in 1998, lost in the divisional round to Bill Cowher's Steelers, 7-6. So, Pete Carroll won the second lowest scoring playoff game, maybe in NFL history, with a 10-9 win. And again, when you look at these two teams, they're very similar. You got, defenses loaded with talent on the front and the back end. You have 2 great quarterbacks in terms of size. Cam's has an advantage in size. Cam has an advantage probably in arm strength. But Russell Wilson has the advantage in elusiveness, and he has the experience advantage playing in his 9th playoff game in only 4 years. And Russell Wilson, in this series against Carolina is actually 3-0 in Carolina. His numbers in those 3 games, he's completed 71.1% of his passes for 740 yards, 3 touchdowns to 3 interceptions. And actually, here's another little fun little match stat. I don't think anybody realizes this, but Cam Newton has never played a team outside of the NFC West in his playoff career. He played San Francisco in 2013. He played Arizona and Seattle last year. And he's playing Seattle this year. So he has never had to play a playoff game outside of the NFC West. So in some ways, that's maybe an advantage because the NFC West teams are very similar in the way they stock up. This series, I expect another Seattle-Minnesota type of game. The difference in the last 5 meetings since Newton and Russell have been together is by an average of 6.6 points per game. The highest amount was 14 points. That was last year in the divisional round when Seattle beat Carolina 31-17. And Cam Newton, he's going to have to get, he has about a little bit of Russell Wilson's numbers in the postseason, just for Russell Wilson in Carolina. He's completed 61.3% of his passes, so obviously Russell's completed a very higher rate of passes compared to Cam in the postseason. 711 yards to only 740, 5 touchdowns to 5 interceptions. So they both have 1 for 1. So with that in line, you definitely can say that both quarterbacks probably will commit a turnover in the game. And so, but when I look at this game, would I be surprised if Carolina wins? Absolutely not. But what I'm just going to say is this. The biggest difference in this game, which I guess is going to be key, is Marshawn Lynch should be back this weekend. He didn't play yesterday because of his abdomen injury, but he practiced the whole week. And he didn't even travel with the team. So I have a little bit of a problem with that. But again, his teammates have said that's how Marshawn is. If he can't play, he doesn't even travel. If Marshawn Lynch feels good enough to play, that's going to be a huge factor. Because if you get beast mode back with fresh legs, and he's motivated, to show that he's still beast mode, and if Jonathan Stewart can't play, the Seahawks are going to have a huge advantage in this game. Because if Jonathan Stewart can't play, that's huge. And as I've seen out of Carolina over the last few weeks, their running game has not nearly been as effective. And again, I think all the pressure is on Cam. This is Cam's big moment. Here come the Seattle Seahawks, again, being motivated to try to show that Week 5 game was a fluke. And I think for a lot of teams, a lot of people, they do believe that was a fluke because of how wide open Greg Olsen was in that busted coverage. But Cam, it is your moment. This is your moment to get to your first NFC title game and to end the Seahawks run that they've been on the last 3 years. This is your opportunity to end the run and end all the bragging by Seattle fans. And if you can step up to the occasion, you're going to go a long way in proving that, it's a new time and it's your time and this Carolina team's time to get the chip. Again, I'm really excited about this game. This is going to be Minnesota, Seattle, just more improved because Carolina has more talent and better people at their positions than Minnesota does. But I'm going to take Seattle here just because, again, I think that experience and the confidence. Again, could the Seahawks be in for emotional letdown? Absolutely. But I don't believe that'll happen. I believe they'll use yesterday's game as a motivating factor, and they're going to come out and just by the skin of their teeth once again, maybe this time instead of a botched field goal, a game-winning field goal by Steve Hauschka to get the win for the Seahawks and advance them to their third consecutive NFC title game, which I believe will tie with the Bills. And the last NFC team to do that was the 92 to 94 Dallas Cowboys. So good job for Seattle for achieving that mark. Again, it should be a great game, but I'm going to take the Seahawks. And finally, the Sunday night game to end the divisional round, Pittsburgh at Denver. I'm going to take Denver here just because of the injuries. Big Ben Roethlisberger, apparently he has suffered, or they believe he has suffered a sprained AC joint in the shoulder, which will be huge. I don't believe he will need to practice because he's Big Ben Roethlisberger. He knows the system. He can watch a lot of tape, and he just has enough experience to run the offense. However, Antonio Brown going through concussion protocol is huge. And to me, if he can't pass protocol, they're not going to win. Because no Antonio Brown means very little offense for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I think that's how important he is to this team. He's the second most important offensive weapon behind Big Ben Roethlisberger. And I think that'll be a factor. But this is, and also kudos, by the way, to the Steelers for winning their 34th postseason games, tied with the Dallas Cowboys for the most wins, for the most playoff wins in NFL history. And Denver's going to want revenge because Pittsburgh beat Denver 34-27, and the Steelers defense shut out the Broncos offense in the second half. But this is the biggest game for Peyton Manning. I said this last year, and I got some flack from some people, and I'm going to say it again. Peyton Manning is making his 15th playoff appearance in 18 years. 9 of those 15 times, he's gone one and done. That's 60% of the time. 5 of those times, he's either been a 1 or 2 seed. And 2 of those 3 times have happened in Denver. So, if Peyton Manning loses this game with maybe no Antonio Brown and not even Ben Roethlisberger, that is going to cement him to me as a disappointment as a number 1 overall draft pick. And I said this last year, and I got a lot of flack for it, but I'll explain again. To have as many MVPs as Peyton Manning does, to have as many regular season records, touchdown record, yardage record, made Pro Bowls, consistency to the highest degree, and the top model NFL player in character out there. It's just amazing to me how this man could be on the verge of going one and done 66% of the time that he made the playoffs. 66% of the time. An 83% makeage rate to a 66% one and done rate is awful. And to me, it would be a disappointment. Because a guy as great as Peyton Manning, one of the greatest quarterbacks to some people, the greatest quarterback to ever play this game, to have that many one and dones on his resume, that's just a disappointment that Peyton Manning didn't go to 5 or 6 Super Bowls like his rival Tom Brady did. The fact that he has a losing record in the postseason, it would just, to me, just show again that I'll make that statement one more time. If he loses this game, he will be one of the most disappointing number 1 overall picks. And I mean disappointing in the sense of all those regular season stats, all those regular season records, and all those regular season, all those stats and records and all of that and all those wins really meant nothing a majority of the time because Peyton's teams went one and done in the playoffs at that high of a rate. So, again, you might think that's harsh, but that's just my opinion. Is that if you make the playoffs 15 out of 18 years, that's 83%. And then on top of that, but then at the same time you go one and done 66% of the time, that is not good. To have only that little margin of one and done difference, 66 to 83, that's a disappointment. Because all those regular season stuff, for a lot of people, that's that one flaw that Peyton Manning has. Is that that's what everybody's going to hold to against him. Is that all the regular season stats were great, they're all-time great, they're all-time great. But it really didn't mean anything the majority of the time when the postseason came along and you couldn't move the team forward. And also, so again, that's just my thought. Again, any Broncos fans, Billy B, if you want to disagree with that, please let me know. And again, you can talk to me on Wednesday. Shout out to him as well. Shout out to Billy B. And best of luck to your Broncos. And also, the Pittsburgh Steelers are trying to win in Denver for the first time since the 2005 AFC title game. And it's very odd for Steeler fans because this is eerily familiar to the 2005 season. They played Cincinnati, and won that game. And now here they come. They're playing Peyton Manning in Denver the second time, just like they played Peyton Manning in Indy. And they could end up playing New England. Yeah, they could end up playing New England or Kansas City. And I would love for them to play Kansas City because what a great way for the Steelers to start and end the 11-game streak the Chiefs went on from that moment. So, but again, those are my thoughts and comments all for this week. Like, comment, rate, subscribe. Please check out the NFL YouTube Prognosticators page. Shout out to guys like Gio Knows, Billy B, Hatbox, Andrew Warren, Edwin Lerner, Dante I'm sorry if I mispronounced your name. Calferso, Logan Schiff, Andrew Warren, King Poetic, Owen Grenberg, the Wise Guys, Stuart Madison, Gino Biscotti, and all those guys. Please check out their picks. They're all great prognosticators, just like myself. And yeah, just please check them out. They're great guys and gals. So that's it. So good luck to all the divisional playoff teams, their coaches, their players, their fans, and good luck to all playoff fantasy players. You're getting to the Super Bowl, so we'll have to wait and see. But that's it. So best of luck to everybody. Enjoy the 4 games this weekend. And until next week for the Conference Championship edition, for my Conference Championship picks, this is Matt the NFL Fanatic signing off. Until next time, so long.